Worry is a silent thief. It creeps into your mind, takes over your thoughts, and convinces you that you're the only one who has to figure everything out. It makes you believe that if you don't have all the answers, everything will fall apart. But let me tell you something. Worry was never yours to carry. It was never meant to be a part of your life. It is not your responsibility to bear the weight of the world on your shoulders. Think about how much time you've spent worrying. How many nights have you laid awake replaying worst-case scenarios in your mind? How many times have you felt paralyzed, unable to move forward because fear gripped your heart? Worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it takes you nowhere. It drains your energy, steals your joy, and clouds your judgment. Yet so many of us live in a constant state of anxiety, trying to control things that were never meant to be in our hands in the first place. But here's the truth you need to understand. The moment you choose to let go, the moment you decide to surrender your worries to God, that is the moment you find freedom. That's when the weight lifts. That's when clarity comes, because God never intended for you to fight battles that only He can win. You see, life is unpredictable. There will always be uncertainties, challenges, and situations that seem too big to handle. But the good news is, you don't have to handle them alone. God is not looking at your problems wondering what to do next. He already has a plan. He already knows the outcome. And if you trust Him, He will lead you through it. Yet so often we act like we trust God, but deep down we hold on to our worries as if they are somehow safer in our hands than in His. We pray about our struggles, but the moment we say amen, we pick them right back up and continue stressing over them. But that's not real trust. Trust means releasing your grip. It means understanding that God sees the whole picture while you only see a tiny piece. It means believing that He is working behind the scenes even when nothing seems to be changing. Look at nature. The birds in the sky, they don't worry about what they will eat tomorrow. The flowers in the field, they don't stress over how they will grow, yet God takes care of them. If He provides for the birds and the flowers, how much more will He take care of you? He knows your needs. He knows your fears. He knows exactly what you're going through, and He's saying, give it to me. Stop carrying this alone. But I know what you're thinking. What if I let go and everything falls apart? Let me ask you this. Has worrying ever changed the outcome of a situation? Has it ever added peace to your life? Has it ever brought you closer to a solution? The answer is no. Worry doesn't fix problems. It only magnifies them. Worry makes you feel like you're in control, but in reality, it controls you. That's why you have to make a choice. Either you can keep holding on to your worries, trying to figure everything out on your own, or you can release them into the hands of the one who already has the answers. You can keep exhausting yourself, or you can surrender and find peace. And let me tell you, when you surrender, something shifts. The burden that once felt impossible to carry suddenly becomes lighter. The anxiety that once consumed you starts to fade. It doesn't mean the challenges disappear overnight, but it does mean you are no longer facing them alone. It means you are walking in faith, knowing that God is handling what you cannot. So today, right now, make a decision. Decide that you are done letting worry steal your peace. Decide that you will no longer waste your energy on things you cannot control. Decide that you will trust God even when you don't have all the answers, because the truth is you were never meant to carry this burden. It was always His to bear. Fear and faith cannot coexist. They are two opposing forces, constantly at war within you. Fear whispers doubt, while faith speaks assurance. Fear magnifies the problem, but faith magnifies the solution. Fear will always tell you that things will never work out, that you are not enough, that you are all alone in this battle. But faith says, God is with me, and He will make a way. The question is, which voice are you listening to? Worry is the seed of fear. It starts as a small thought. What if things don't go the way I planned? And before you know it, that small seed grows into a deep-rooted fear that controls every decision you make. It keeps you from stepping out in faith. It paralyzes you, making you believe that if you can't see the full picture, you shouldn't take a step forward at all. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith is trusting God even when you don't see how it will all come together. Faith is knowing that even in the uncertainty, God is already working on your behalf. Fear will always try to convince you that your circumstances are bigger than your God. It will make you believe that the obstacles in front of you are impossible to overcome. But let me ask you this. When has fear ever led you to victory? When has fear ever given you peace? It hasn't. Fear does nothing but steal your joy, cloud your judgment, and keep you trapped in a cycle of anxiety. But when you choose faith, you are choosing to believe that no matter what you face, God is greater. You see, faith isn't just a feeling, it's a decision to trust even when it's hard, a decision to keep moving forward even when you don't have all the answers, a decision to say, God, I don't know how, but I know you will make a way. And when you make that decision, when you truly step into faith, fear begins to lose its grip on you. But here's the problem. Too many people try to mix faith with fear. They say they trust God, but in the back of their minds, they are still consumed with doubt. They pray for peace, but then they spend the rest of the day worrying about the very thing they just prayed about. But that's not faith. Faith isn't saying you trust God while still holding on to the fear. Faith is releasing the fear completely and choosing to stand firm in His promises. Think about this. A child doesn't worry about whether their parent will provide food for them. They don't sit around anxious wondering if their needs will be met. They simply trust because they know their parent loves them and that love is enough to guarantee their provision. It's the same kind of trust God wants you to have in Him. He wants you to rest in the confidence that He has already gone before you, that He already has a plan, that He will take care of you. So why do we struggle with this? Why do we still hold on to fear when we know that God is faithful? Because we want control. We think that if we can just figure everything out on our own, we will somehow have more security. But the truth is, real security doesn't come from knowing all the answers. It comes from knowing the one who holds all the answers. The enemy will always try to fill your mind with fear. He wants you to doubt. He wants you to feel overwhelmed. He wants you to believe that things will never get better. But God is saying, trust me. Stop letting fear dictate your life. Stop letting worry steal your joy. I am bigger than your problem. I am greater than your struggle. I will never fail you. You have a choice to make. You can keep holding on to fear, allowing it to control your life, or you can choose faith and experience the peace that only God can give. But you can't have both. One will always overpower the other. It's time to stop letting fear call the shots. It's time to start walking in faith, believing that God's promises are greater than your doubts. Because when you truly trust Him, fear has no choice but to leave. Worrying will change a thing. No matter how many hours you spend overthinking, no matter how much stress you put on yourself trying to figure everything out, worrying will never give you the outcome you want. It won't open the doors you're hoping for. It won't fix the problems you're facing. It won't bring peace. It just drains you, wears you down, and leaves you stuck in the same place, wondering why nothing is changing. But let me tell you something. God is in control. He always has been and He always will be. And the moment you truly understand that, you will stop carrying burdens that were never yours to carry. So many people live their lives gripping tightly onto everything, afraid to let go because they think if they don't have control, everything will fall apart. But the truth is, control is an illusion. You were never in control to begin with. You can't control the future. You can't control how other people will act. You can't control every little detail of your life. But you know what? You don't have to. Because the one who created the heavens and the earth, the one who holds the universe in His hands, the one who has never failed, He is the one who is in control. And if you truly trust Him, you will stop holding on to things that belong in His hands, not yours. When you try to control everything, you're actually telling God, I don't trust you to handle this. You may not say it out loud, but your actions reveal it. You pray for help, but then you keep stressing over the situation. You say you believe God is working, but then you act as if everything depends on you. That's not faith. Faith is saying, God, I don't understand how this will work out, but I trust that you already have the solution. It's letting go of the need to know every detail and resting in the fact that He already knows the outcome. Think about the storms in your life, the moments when everything seemed uncertain, when you didn't know how you were going to make it through. You worried, you stressed, you tried to figure it all out on your own. But in the end, God came through, didn't He? It may not have happened the way you expected. It may not have been on your timeline. But He made a way. And if He's done it before, what makes you think He won't do it again? The problem isn't that God isn't working. The problem is that you're too focused on the problem to see His hand in the middle of it. You're so busy trying to control everything that you're missing the fact that God is already moving on your behalf. Sometimes He's clearing a path that you can't even see yet. Sometimes He's aligning things behind the scenes that you wouldn't even think to ask for. But if you're too consumed by worry, you'll miss the very miracle that's unfolding in front of you. That's why you have to let go. Not just say you're letting go, but truly surrender. Stop carrying stress that was never meant for you. Stop trying to handle things that only God can handle. Stop overanalyzing, overthinking, and exhausting yourself. It's time to give it to God and let Him do what only He can do. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you do what you can and you trust God with what you can't. It means you stop fighting battles that aren't yours to fight. It means you stop letting worry steal your peace and start believing that God is in control even when things don't make sense. So what are you holding on to? What have you been trying to control, thinking that if you just try hard enough, you can fix it yourself? Whatever it is, it's time to release it. It's time to trust that God's plan is better than yours. It's time to believe that He is in control, and because of that, you don't have to be. Because when you finally let go, that's when you'll find the peace you've been searching for all along. When life gets overwhelming, the natural response is to panic. It's to let your mind race with 1,000 what-ifs, to feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on you, to scramble for solutions that always seem just out of reach. But panic has never solved a problem. Worry has never opened a door. Stress has never changed an outcome. Yet so many people live their lives trapped in an endless cycle of fear, constantly reacting to every difficulty as if it all depends on them. But it doesn't. It never did. The truth is, every time you choose panic over prayer, you are choosing to rely on your own strength instead of God's. You are saying, I have to figure this out. I have to fix this. I have to make something happen. But that's not faith. Faith doesn't panic. Faith prays. Faith doesn't look at a mountain and say, I don't know how I'm going to climb this. Faith looks at a mountain and says, I don't have to climb this alone. Because when you pray, you are inviting God into the situation. You are taking the burden off of your shoulders and placing it into the hands of the one who can actually do something about it. But too often people treat prayer like a last resort instead of a first response. They try everything else first. They stress, they overthink, they let fear take control. Then, when nothing else works, they finally turn to God. But that's not how it's supposed to be. Prayer is not your backup plan. It's not what you do when all else fails. It's what you do first. It's what you do before the worry even has a chance to settle in. Because when you go to God first, you are reminding yourself that He is in control, that He sees what you can't see, that He already has the solution before you even know the problem. There is power in surrender. Not weakness, but power. Because when you surrender your worries in prayer, you are shifting your focus from the size of your problem to the size of your God. You are making a conscious decision to trust that He is already working on your behalf. And when you do that, something incredible happens. The storm may not disappear right away. The challenges may still be there. But suddenly, you have peace in the middle of it. A peace that doesn't even make sense. A peace that calms your mind and steadies your heart. A peace that says, I don't know how, but I know who. That's the kind of peace God wants you to have. The kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. The kind of peace that remains even when life feels uncertain. Because real peace doesn't come from everything going the way you want. It comes from knowing that even when things don't go your way, God is still in control. So why keep carrying what you were never meant to carry? Why keep letting worry rob you of your joy, your energy, your faith? Prayer is your weapon. It is your direct line to the one who holds the universe together. It is not just words. It is an act of trust an act of surrender, an act of faith. It is you saying, God, I don't have all the answers, but I trust that you do. And when you live like that, when you choose prayer over panic, you begin to see things shift in ways you never expected. So the next time worry tries to creep in, stop and pray. The next time fear tries to take over, stop and pray. The next time your mind starts racing with all the things that could go wrong, stop and pray. Because prayer changes things, it changes situations, and more importantly, it changes you. It reminds you that you are not alone, that you don't have to figure everything out, that you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to trust the one who does. Because when you give it to God, He gives you something in return, peace, that the world cannot take away. Worry will keep you stuck, but faith requires movement. It's one thing to say you trust God. It's another thing to live like you do. Too many people spend their lives waiting for a sign, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the fear to disappear before they take a step. But faith doesn't wait for fear to leave. Faith moves forward in spite of fear. Faith is taking action even when you don't have all the answers because you trust that God does. So many people pray for change but never take the steps required to receive it. They ask God for direction but never move their feet. They ask Him for breakthrough but refuse to step out in obedience. But faith is not passive. Faith doesn't sit back and hope things magically fall into place. Faith steps out even when the path isn't clear. Faith says, I may not see how this is going to work out, but I refuse to stand still in fear, because fear wants to keep you frozen. Fear wants to keep you overanalyzing, second-guessing, and questioning every decision. But God has not called you to a life of hesitation. He has called you to a life of boldness, of action, of trust. Think about a seed. If you hold on to a seed and never plant it, nothing will ever grow. You can pray over that seed all you want, but until you put it in the ground, water it, and nurture it, you will never see the harvest. That's how faith works. You can believe all you want, but at some point you have to put action behind that belief. You have to step out even when it doesn't make sense. You have to trust that if God called you to it, He will equip you for it. Look back at your life. Think about the moments when God was prompting you to take a step, but fear held you back. How many opportunities were missed? How many blessings were delayed? Not because God wasn't ready, but because you weren't willing to move? You see, when God calls you to do something, He doesn't give you all the details up front. He doesn't lay out the entire plan before you take the first step. He simply says, trust me. And as you move forward in faith, He reveals the next step, then the next. But if you refuse to move, you'll never see the full picture. Some of you are waiting for fear to go away before you step out. You're waiting for everything to make sense before you trust. But that's not how faith works. Faith is stepping out when you're still unsure. Faith is making the move even when fear is whispering, what if it doesn't work? Because real faith answers back, but what if it does? Real faith says, even if I don't see the full picture, I trust the one who does. God has given you everything you need to take the next step. He has given you the strength, the wisdom, and the ability to move forward, but He will not force you. That's the thing about faith. It requires you to participate. You can't just sit back and wait for something to happen. You have to get up and walk in the direction God is leading you. And when you do, you will see doors open that you never expected. You will see mountains move that you thought were impossible. You will look back and realize that the thing you were so afraid of was never as big as you made it out to be. So stop waiting. Stop hesitating. Stop letting worry keep you from moving forward. If you know God has placed something on your heart, take the step. If you know He is calling you to trust Him, move in faith. Don't let fear dictate your future. Don't let doubt steal your destiny, because on the other side of your obedience is the blessing you've been praying for. The only question is, are you willing to move? At some point, you have to make a decision. Are you going to keep carrying the weight of worry, fear, and doubt? Are you going to keep letting anxiety steal your peace, your joy, your future? Or are you finally going to let it go and give it to God? Because the truth is, you can't have it both ways. You can't say you trust God and then continue to live as if everything depends on you. You can't claim to have faith and then let fear dictate your every move. At some point, you have to choose. Either you surrender it all to Him, or you continue carrying a burden that was never yours to carry in the first place. Worry is a heavy load. It weighs on your mind. It drains your energy. It robs you of sleep. It steals your joy. And for what? Has worrying ever made a situation better? Has stress ever solved a problem? Has anxiety ever opened a door? No, it only holds you back. It only keeps you trapped in cycles of doubt and fear. But God never intended for you to live like that. He never wanted you to walk through life exhausted, overwhelmed, and burdened by things you were never meant to handle on your own. That's why He says, cast your burdens on me. That's why He tells you to lay it down. But He won't force you. You have to make the decision to release it. Letting go doesn't mean ignoring your problems. It doesn't mean pretending that challenges don't exist. It means recognizing that you don't have to figure everything out by yourself. It means understanding that God is already working behind the scenes, aligning things in ways you can't even see yet. It means trusting that even when things feel out of control, they are still completely in His hands. And if they're in His hands, then you don't have to carry the weight of them anymore. Think about the times in your life when you tried to handle everything on your own. The moments when you carried stress on your shoulders, trying to fix things in your own strength. How did that work out for you? How much peace did you have? How much joy? Or did you spend your days exhausted, frustrated, and discouraged because no matter how hard you tried, things still felt overwhelming? But then think about the moments when you finally let go. The times when you said, God, I can't do this on my own. I need you. What happened? Didn't you feel a sense of peace wash over you? Didn't you experience relief knowing that you weren't meant to handle it all by yourself? That's the power of surrender. That's what happens when you finally give it to God, but too many people pick it back up. They say they've given it to God, but then a few days go by and they're right back to worrying, right back to stressing, right back to trying to take control again. But that's not surrender. Surrender isn't temporary. It's not something you do today and undo tomorrow. It's a decision to trust Him completely no matter what. It's a mindset that says, I refuse to let worry run my life. I refuse to let fear control me. I refuse to carry what God has already taken care of. So what is it for you? What are you still holding on to? What fear, what doubt, what stress have you been gripping so tightly that it's keeping you from experiencing the peace God has for you? Because whatever it is, it's time to let it go. It's time to make the choice once and for all. No more worrying about things you can't control. No more overthinking every little detail. No more living in a constant state of stress. Today is the day you release it. Today is the day you finally say, God, I trust you completely. And when you do, when you truly surrender, you will walk in a freedom and a peace that you have never known before. Because when you give it to God, He replaces your worry with confidence, your fear with faith, and your stress with peace that nothing in this world can take away.